Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at biotechnology and gene editing.
So very cool. Yeah.
And, you've given us some really fascinating resources to work with. One is sort of like a big overview of the whole journey of biotech and gene editing. And then another one is like, wow, this is intense. It's like a whole syllabus
Yeah.
for like a super detailed course on the
Yeah.
subject.
You're right. It's
Right.
lots to cover.
Yeah, there's so much here. But I think, that's why we do these deep dives, right? To
Absolutely.
try to like get to the heart of it all.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is, we think about biotechnology as this like cutting edge thing, but it's really built on something that goes way, way back.
Right. It's not like humans just suddenly started
Right.
messing around with biology. Like,
Yeah.
it's something we've always kind of been doing.
Yeah. And the resources point that out too. Like even ancient civilizations, they were already doing things like fermentation, right? Bread, beer, cheese.
Like, they were harnessing microorganisms without even knowing that that's what they were doing.
Exactly. Way before we had all these fancy labs and equipment.
Yeah, so fascinating.
Yeah.
And what's even cooler is that those early innovations kind of set the stage for, what we think of as modern biotechnology.
They did.
Like selective breeding, for example.
Right.
Like, for centuries, farmers would choose, the best crops and livestock to breed together to try to like enhance certain traits.
Totally. I mean, essentially what they were doing was manipulating genes.
Right.
They just didn't have the molecular tools that we have today.
It's like they were like the original
Exactly.
genetic engineers in a way.
The OG genetic engineers.
So when did things really start to shift towards the biotechnology that we're familiar with today?
Well, the resources kind of pinpoint the 1970s as this pivotal decade, and specifically with the discovery of recombinant DNA technology.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where scientists figured out how to like combine DNA from different organisms.
It's like cutting and pasting genetic code.
Yeah, like you're editing a film or something.
That's a good analogy. So what kind of impact did this have on like the real world? Like, how did this actually affect people's lives?
I mean, it was huge. One of the earliest and most significant applications was the production of human insulin
Yeah.
using genetically modified bacteria.
Wow.
And you have to remember, this is back in the 70s and 80s when insulin was really expensive and hard to get for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And this breakthrough made treatment accessible and affordable for millions of people with diabetes.
So it's really at this point that we start to see the potential of biotechnology to like...
To really make a difference,
Yeah.
like improve people's health and well-being.
Absolutely. And it seems like that was just the beginning.
Oh, yeah, just the tip of the iceberg.
Because in the 90s and the 2000s, this idea of gene therapy starts to emerge.
Right.
This concept of like actually fixing the genes that cause diseases like cystic fibrosis or Huntington's.
Is a revolutionary idea.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
It does.
Were there challenges with these early attempts at gene therapy?
Oh, for sure. The sources talk about how the early tools were kind of imprecise.
Okay.
And there were safety concerns.
Yeah.
It was kind of like trying to do surgery with a really blunt instrument.
Okay.
Scientists needed a more refined approach.
Yeah.
And so then came along ZFNs and talons.
Oh, gosh, the acronym.
I know, right?
But those offered like slightly more targeted genetic modifications.
Yeah, so we're getting a slightly sharper scalpel now,
Okay.
but still not quite the precision tool that scientists were looking for.
Got it.
And that breakthrough came with the discovery of the CRISPR-Cas9 system in the 2010s.
CRISPR. It's like everywhere you turn, you hear about CRISPR.
All over the place.
And from reading these sources, it seems like that was a real turning point for gene editing. So what made it so revolutionary?
Well, basically, you can think of CRISPR-Cas9 as like this pair of molecular scissors that can precisely cut and edit DNA.
Oh, wow.
And it was way more efficient, more accurate, and much cheaper than previous gene editing techniques.
So it's like we went from a hammer to like a scalpel to like...
To like a laser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a super precise tool
Exactly.
for manipulating the building blocks of life.
Uh-huh.
So what kind of potential applications did that open up?
Oh, wow. The possibilities seemed endless, preventing the spread of diseases like malaria, eliminating genetic diseases before birth. CRISPR really offered these unprecedented opportunities to improve human health and well-being.
It's like almost hard to wrap your head around
Right.
the potential impact, but I'm guessing such a powerful tool also comes with its share of ethical concerns.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. The announcement of the first gene-edited babies back in 2018, it sent shockwaves around the world,
Yeah.
sparked intense debate about the ethics of manipulating the human germline.
Right, because then that means that any changes that are made to the genes of an embryo could then be passed
For
down.
future generations.
Yeah, to future
It's a
generations.
pretty big deal.
It's a really, really big deal.
Yeah, it raises a lot of questions, where do we draw the line when it comes to gene editing? Who gets to decide which traits are desirable?
Right.
Which ones aren't? What are the potential unintended consequences of altering the human genome? I mean,
Yeah.
these are all things we have to think about.
Yeah. It's like CRISPR opened this whole new frontier,
They did.
not just in science, but in ethics, too.
Huh?
And I'm guessing it's a pretty complex landscape to try to navigate.
Definitely. I mean, it's not just about the science itself, It's about how we, as a society, decide to use these powerful tools.
And speaking of the sources we're looking at, they really emphasize that public understanding and engagement are crucial for navigating the ethical complexities of biotechnology,
Yeah,
almost like how we navigate, the digital world
that's a great
and
analogy.
all the challenges that come with that.
I think so too. I mean, just like we need to be informed citizens in the digital age, we need to be informed about the potential benefits and risks of biotechnology so we can participate in shaping its future.
And that participation can take so many forms.
It can.
Voting on policies to just staying informed about the latest developments in the field.
Absolutely. The more we understand about biotechnology, the better equipped we'll be to engage in these important conversations.
So it's clear that biotechnology is about so much more than just lab experiments and scientific breakthroughs.
It is.
It's really about shaping our future and making choices that reflect our values.
And that's exactly what makes it such a fascinating and complex field to explore. It's not just about science, it's about who we are and what kind of world we want to live in.
So we've journeyed from ancient fermentation to gene-edited babies
We have.
and covered a lot of ground in between.
We've covered a lot.
What stands out to you as we kind of wrap up this first part of our deep dive?
You know what I think what's striking to me is the incredible pace of innovation in this field. I mean, from the discovery of recombinant DNA to the development of CRISPR,
Yeah.
things have moved incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And it's only going to accelerate from here.
And that rapid pace of change.
Makes it all the more important to stay informed and engaged.
It does. And so before we take a closer look at the current state of biotechnology and what the future holds, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered so far. This is a good time to grab a drink, a snack, ponder the ethical quandaries of gene editing.
Right.
We'll be back in a flash to continue our exploration. Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of dive into, how biotechnology is shaping the world today.
Right.
We've seen how the field's evolved over centuries. But where are we now? What are some of the most exciting areas where biotech is making a real difference?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of buzz is CRT cell therapy. It's this powerful new approach to fighting cancer.
Oh, yeah.
And it really illustrates the potential of personalized medicine.
Okay, yeah, the sources touched on this a bit, but I think for those of us who aren't, medical experts, can you break down what makes the IRT cell therapy so unique?
Sure. Basically, it involves taking a patient's own immune cells, specifically T cells, and genetically modifying them to recognize and attack cancer cells.
So it's like
giving your immune system a personalized weapon to target the disease.
that's like training your body's own defense system to be more effective at fighting cancer.
And the results have been remarkable for certain types of cancer, especially blood cancers.
Wow.
So it's offering hope for patients who might have run out of other treatment options.
That's incredible to think that we can now manipulate cells at such a precise level.
It is.
The sources also mentioned the impact of biotechnology on vaccine development, particularly the rapid development of mRNA vaccines for COVID-19.
Yeah, that was a major breakthrough, and it really showcases the power and speed of biotechnology in responding to a global crisis.
Right, because they were developed and deployed so quickly.
At an unprecedented pace.
Yeah.
And it really demonstrated how this field can be a game changer in public health.
And it seems like mRNA technology has applications beyond just vaccines, right? The sources hinted at its potential for treating other diseases as well.
Absolutely. Scientists are exploring its use for everything from cancer treatment to personalized therapies for genetic diseases.
Wow.
It's a really exciting area of research.
So many possibilities.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can see that biotechnology is playing this crucial role in advancing medicine.
Totally.
But let's maybe shift gears a bit and talk about its impact on another area, agriculture.
Okay.
The sources dive into the world of genetically modified crops, or GMOs,
Right.
which have been, kind of a topic of much debate over the years.
A lot of debate.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, GMOs are a great example of how biotechnology can be used to address some of these global challenges like food security and sustainability. And the sources highlight examples like vitamin-enriched rice, which is being used to combat vitamin A deficiency in developing countries.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
That's amazing to think that just that simple genetic modification could potentially prevent blindness in millions of people.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Are there other examples of GMOs having like a positive impact?
Oh, tons. I mean, crops engineered to be resistant to drought or pests, that can increase yields and reduce the reliance on pesticides, which is good for the environment and human health.
So it sounds like GMOs have the potential to address some of the biggest challenges facing agriculture today.
Yeah, they really do.
But I know there are also concerns about their use.
Right.
What are some of the key arguments against GMOs that the sources bring up?
Well, some concerns center around the potential environmental impacts, like the possibility of genetically modified crops, crossbreeding with wild varieties, or disrupting ecosystems.
Right.
There are also questions about corporate control of the food supply and whether these technologies could exacerbate existing inequalities.
It sounds like a very complex issue. It's a
Exactly.
valid points on both sides.
Absolutely. These are not easy answers, and we need to weigh the potential benefits and risks carefully and consider a variety of perspectives.
The sources also brought up another really intriguing application of biotechnology in agriculture: gene drives.
Oh,
It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
it does, right?
Can you talk a little bit about what gene drives are?
So gene drives use CRISPR technology to spread specific genetic modifications through a population
Okay.
much faster than would naturally occur.
So?
So imagine being able to engineer a mosquito that can't transmit malaria
Wow.
or a pest that can't damage crops. I mean,
Yeah, the potential for controlling diseases and protecting ecosystems.
it's huge.
It's huge. But I imagine there are also ethical concerns about using such a powerful tool.
Of course. I mean, releasing gene drives into the wild could have unintended consequences that are difficult to predict or control. And there are also concerns about who gets to decide when and where this technology should be used.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
And it brings us back to this idea that we need to think really carefully about the ethical implications of biotechnology before we just deploy these powerful tools.
Yeah, we need to consider the potential long-term impacts, not just the immediate benefits.
So we've seen how biotechnology is revolutionizing medicine and agriculture. And now we're talking about this thing called gene drives.
Right.
But the sources also touch on a field that seems even more futuristic: synthetic biology.
Yeah, this is where things get really mind-boggling.
I know, it's hard to even imagine.
It is. So synthetic biology aims to engineer biological systems from scratch, basically design and build new organisms or modify existing ones to perform very specific tasks.
So we're talking about creating entirely new life forms.
Yeah, essentially.
What kind of applications does this have in the real world? I mean, is this just like a theoretical thing?
No, I mean, the possibilities are almost limitless.
Wow.
Scientists are engineering microbes to clean up pollution, produce biofuels, and even manufacture new materials with properties that don't exist in nature.
That's incredible.
It is.
It's like we could potentially use biotechnology to address some of the biggest challenges facing humanity, like climate change and resource scarcity.
The potential is definitely there. But as with any powerful technology, we need to proceed with caution and make sure that these innovations are developed and used responsibly.
So we've seen how biotechnology is revolutionizing medicine, agriculture, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with synthetic biology.
Right.
But what about the future?
Yeah.
What are some of the emerging trends and possibilities that the sources highlight?
Well, one area that holds immense promise is precision medicine.
Okay.
And by understanding an individual's unique genetic makeup,
Right.
we can predict their susceptibility to certain diseases, diagnose conditions earlier, and develop therapies that are specifically tailored to their needs.
So it's like taking a personalized approach
Yeah,
to healthcare.
exactly. Moving away from this one-size-fits-all model.
Right.
And as our understanding of genetics and genomics continues to advance, the possibilities for precision medicine are just going to keep growing.
It's incredible to think that we're moving towards a future where treatments can be customized to an individual's genetic blueprint.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Okay, so much to think about. So we've explored all these different facets of biotechnology, but as we kind of start to wrap up this part of our conversation, what do you think are some of the most important takeaways from our deep dive so far?
I think what strikes me is how biotechnology in all its forms really reflects this innate human desire to understand and shape the world around us.
Yeah.
It's a continuation of something we've been doing for centuries, from
Huh.
fermenting food to selectively breeding plants and
That's
animals.
like biotechnology is the latest chapter in this
Yeah.
ongoing story and
Yeah.
human innovation.
And as we continue to delve deeper into the complexities of biology and unlock its secrets, the possibilities for improving human health, addressing global challenges, and even shaping our own evolution are both exciting and daunting.
Well said. I think this is a good place to pause and reflect on everything we've covered so far. Take a moment to consider those ethical questions we've discussed and the implications of this rapidly evolving field. We'll be back in a jiffy to wrap things up and explore some final thoughts on what this all means for us and for the future of humanity. And we are back for the final part of our deep dive on biotechnology and gene editing.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has, from ancient fermentation to designer babies and everything in between.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But as we wrap up, let's try to zoom out a little bit and connect all these dots. What are the big takeaways for you? What are the things that really make you go,
One thing that keeps coming back to me is this idea that biotechnology is both incredibly new and incredibly old at the same time.
Yeah, that tension between the cutting edge and the ancient.
Right. It's like we're talking about this cutting edge science, but it's built on this long history of human ingenuity, you know?
It's like we were saying earlier, even ancient civilizations were biotechnologists in their own way, right?
Yeah.
Using fermentation to make food and drink.
Exactly. I mean, they were manipulating life to their advantage without even realizing the science behind it.
And now we're in there, like, at the molecular level, editing genes, creating new organisms.
Right. It's like we've taken this age-old human drive to tinker and innovate, and
Right.
we've applied it to like the very essence of what makes us alive.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
It's almost like biotechnology is this reflection of our own evolution as a species,
I like that.
from those early days of just trial and error to, like, the precision of CRISPR.
It really speaks to our curiosity and our desire to push the boundaries of what's possible.
But as we've seen, that drive to push boundaries can lead to both incredible advancements and, some pretty thorny ethical dilemmas.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are definitely two sides to that coin.
And the sources we've been looking at, they really emphasize the need for, like, careful consideration of those ethical implications,
Right.
especially as these technologies become more and more powerful.
Yeah, we can't just ask, can we do this anymore? We have to ask, should we do this? And if so, how do we make sure that these tools are used responsibly and equitably, for the benefit of all humankind?
And they pose this one question that I thought was particularly thought-provoking.
Oh, yeah.
Where do we draw the line between enhancement and therapy when it comes to gene editing?
That's a big one.
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, if we can edit genes to prevent diseases, what about editing them to enhance traits like intelligence or athletic ability,
Right, like where does treatment end and enhancement begin, and who gets to make that call?
Exactly. These aren't easy questions to answer.
Not at all.
But I think just having these conversations
Is crucial.
is so crucial as we move forward.
Yeah, we need to be talking about this stuff.
Then it can't just be scientists and policymakers in those conversations, right?
It has to be everyone.
It needs to be the public, too,
It's a conversation for all of humanity.
because everyone has a stake in the future of biotechnology.
Exactly.
And the sources really highlight this importance of public understanding and engagement, in shaping the direction of this field.
They do.
They talk about, resources like Jennifer Doudna's book, A Crack in Creation, which offers this fascinating look into the development of CRISPR and encourage people to, explore online courses, citizen science projects, ways to really get involved.
Yeah, it's about empowering people with knowledge so they can participate in these conversations.
So where do we go from here? What's the big takeaway? What's the one thing you really want listeners to walk away with from this deep dive?
I think the most important thing is to remember that biotechnology is a powerful force for change, and it has the potential to both solve some of humanity's greatest challenges and create new ones. It's a field that demands our attention, our critical thinking, and our active participation in shaping its future.
It's not just something happening out there in some lab. It's something that's going to touch all of our lives in really profound ways.
It is.
So stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.
Well said. The future of biotechnology is unfolding right now, and it's a story that we're all writing together. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into this incredible, ever-evolving field.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Likewise.